All right, we are off a major weekend at EchoPark Speedway that doesn't have just these three amigos talking great about their home track, but a lot of people in the industry. We're going to recap the weekend and recap the big silly season rumor that was expected, but now is in the open, and what other dominoes could fall. We'll also talk about what Atlanta's future could be on the Cubs schedule, basically just what we want, and other big rumors about manufacturers and a longtime person in the sport that is no longer with us. We'll pay tribute to them. That's all here on the 5 to Go podcast. And see, no music, no transition, but that doesn't mean we haven't fired up our hot rod Lincoln. Come on, everybody, hop in the window. Doesn't have a door handle on it. Make sure the window net's down first. And welcome to episode 320 of the 5 to Go podcast here on GoPRN.com, on Apple, on Spotify, and now, for the second week or so, its own dedicated YouTube channel, 5 to Go podcast. I'm your co-host, Doug Fireball Turnbull, from, I get to say traffic team again, from the traffic team at 11 Alive News, from the announcing team at Performance Racing Network, where we're all, anybody I've talked to on PRN, just geeked after the weekend that we had the Quaker State 400 and so forth at EchoPark Speedway. And I get to write AJC Gridlock Guy column, and I don't know, I feel like I've gotten to do just about everything this week, including be on Brett McMillan's PRN Pit Reporter show. So we're coming down off of the big Atlanta high, but we're going to digest it one more time just for you right here. Joining me to pile through the headlines and to process what was. First off, he is the roving racing journo who reminded me at 1:30 in the morning after Chase Elliott's big win at EPS that I still needed to do his Brickyard credentials. He's part of the media team at University of North Georgia, our super racing fanalist, and he spent some money on some gear, it looks like, this weekend. Devin Kupka, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. And yes, I spent some money on some gear this weekend. Quaker State 400 available at Walmart. And another thing, too, shout out to everybody that's followed the 5 to Go Facebook page this weekend. We just hit 800 followers on the Facebook page, so we want to welcome anybody new that's listening in today.
Did you say 800 followers on Facebook? We got a whole crowd in my Captain Herb ballroom just out of sight that just clapped for us there. For those watching on YouTube, you can't see them. They didn't sign a waiver. They didn't want to have their images released to the public. So thanks for them sitting there. They're all sitting on top of each other. It's weird, but they wanted to be here. And I want to give a shout out to several listeners. Aaron Gresham, Jeff Vorick, and there's somebody else that was messaging me on social media that were just all about the 5 to Go podcast. Brandon Cunningham, several of them that tell us they listen all the time. Connie Yancey, and I'll talk more about Connie and Raceway Ministries here a little bit in the show as we get into the weekend. But we do have a lot of people. We don't have the numbers, of course, that some of the more well-known racing podcasts have, but we do have some dedicated listeners, so we thank them. And you mentioned the numbers, Devin. We mentioned the numbers. The brand new YouTube page already has, and it sounds pitiful right now, but it already has 41 subscribers. And the videos we put up, which are videos, basically what Devin and I did, if you haven't been to the 5 to Go podcast YouTube page, is we basically just, when they released these drivers on Friday afternoon, like as soon as I got to the racetrack after my 8 hours at Channel 11 on Friday, we just started videoing little snippets of these driver bullpens, not the whole interviews, and throwing those up both on the YouTube page. All of mine went on the YouTube page, I think, and some of yours, Devin, also went on the Facebook page. Then you got exclusive content on Pit Road after the race, too. So it seems like a lot. We're throwing it all at you and just, big PR run here, if you will. But subscribe to 5 to Go podcast. You hear some of our questions. Devin has an exclusive one-on-one interview with Josh Berry that's on YouTube and on Facebook. And again, the takes immediately on Pit Road when these guys get out of the car and are still feeling that race. Also joining us now, Dan is more scouring YouTube looking for the latest headlines, all right? In addition to that, my good buddy Taylor, who just started liking NASCAR, asked me, Dan, if you were related to Chase Elliott. And when I expressed that you're his uncle, she thought that was really cool. And I said, he's Bill's older brother. And she's like, I've never heard of Bill Elliott. What are you talking about? Seriously, that's a real thing. She just started watching NASCAR. But that's a true story. But Dan is our championship race winning mechanic. I knew that'd make him smile. Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee 2018. And he makes us laugh and smile, too. And we're glad he's back. Dan Elliott, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Hope everybody is well. And, yeah, it's great to see you back on the traffic. I need you to bring yourself on up Dawsonville way. I thought that Dawsonville was inundated last weekend, but it has managed to surpass that this week. And we need to have somebody up here doing traffic reporting up here to keep us clean and green.
You know, I don't know that my traffic reporting can keep you clean and green, but certainly mine and my team at 11 Alive News, mainly Rachel Cox Rose in the mornings. If we get any big incidents up 400 way, we'll definitely be letting people know about that. But yeah, I know.
Oh, this would be downtown Dawsonville.
Downtown, right?
This would be a traffic jam in front of the pool room and in the roundabout where they happened to build a courthouse in the roundabout before this was the thing to do.
I love roundabouts, by the way.
Well,
most people here in Atlanta can't stand them,
Why
but they're way more efficient than traffic lights.
Why'd they put all those in the roundabouts? They messed up the thing a couple months ago when I was going through there last time I was up there.
I haven't seen it, Dan. What happened? What'd they put?
They put curbing around the courthouse, which I feel like this was done to slow down the truck traffic through town so we wouldn't run over pedestrians as they viewed the city of Dawsonville. And with all the activity, a buzz and things going on here in the big city, it's bringing throngs of crowds up here. So we can't have the crowds getting run over by the truck traffic. So that was to slow that down. And I don't know that it's worked yet, okay?
It's all in due time, I'm sure there. Yeah, so for anybody that tuned in for micro traffic reports about Dawsonville,
I think I'm going to have to cover that one for sure. And it is just more and more. Today, as I went to lunch, it was, I like to look at different tags. I did that when I was at Gresham, go through the parking lot and see where people were from. But today it was New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, Alabama, and a couple of other states that you have traffic. And I know this is a holiday weekend, but this is getting to be more and more the norm. And I try to ask as many people if they're visiting or moving here. And it's about a 50-50 on people visiting and moving here. The area is getting a lot more congested and nothing you can do about it because I don't believe that there will be, as is everywhere, I don't believe there will be any more new roads built ever.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the demand warrants it. It'll come to, and it stinks because there's not a lot of other ways to get around. But hey, traffic talk a little bit later there. Traffic and urban development talk. I know a guy that's starting to cover that stuff. We'll see. But yeah, Atlanta Joel Constitution Gridlock guy every Sunday. Okay, and 11live.com. All right, now on to the race. Chase Elliott was the man. I don't know what else we could say about it, except I want to know, and I want to start with you, Devin, and ask you this question. A, where did you think this ranked on as far as the EPS races? And we talked about this in our 5 to Go post-race show that we did, the quick post-race post that we did about 1 a.m. on Sunday or whatever it was, 1 a.m., Sunday. But I want you to think, where this race ranked on the pantheon of races since the repave? And then where do you think this ranks as far as the races this season or tracks on the whole circuit? So that's like 3 different questions. This season, APS only, and then overall, is it the best track?
I'll start off with EPS overall, EchoPark Speedway. I think you could make a case this was the best race at EPS. I think it was a better race than the 3-wide photo finish we saw last year in the Better Health 400. Yeah. I remember the spring race in 23 or 22 was pretty good because that was the first one, 500 miles. That one was pretty intense. That was a pretty good race. But
Joey versus Brad. That was another one that Brad lost over there, by the way.
Yeah. That one was pretty good as well. So I'd put this top 2 for sure. When it comes to EchoPark Speedway races, you could make a case for it to be number 1. Now, just the spring 22 race just it was just that newness that felt the atmosphere was just a little different in that one, but I'd rank it up there. But now when you compare it to overall, I guess on the season we've had so far in the NASCAR Cup Series, I think you can really make a case. If you take some of the cautions out, I think you can make a case that this was by far the best race of the season so far in the NASCAR Cup Series.
It seems like a lot of people are thinking that. I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment because the February race here was really good. It ended funky, and so that takes away from it. But I feel like that race had a lot of similarities. I feel like the Daytona 500 had an exciting finish. Coda was really good with its finish. Kyle Busch versus Christopher Bell. And there have been several others that may have ranked up there. On the whole circuit now, at least as things stand right now, and I feel like this is a moving target. There was a point in time where it was Homestead. And then for a while, especially after the closest finish in NASCAR history, Kyle Larson over Chris Buescher a year ago, Kansas. And now we're hearing Atlanta. EchoPark Speedway. And I'm just wondering if this is a moving target because since then, Homestead's had up and down races. Kansas has had up and down races since it got named that. And I kind of wonder that. But Dan, what about you? What did you like about what we saw last Saturday night? Was there anything that you wish had gone different?
After seeing more than a decade of racing in person and probably closer to 2 decades, you're definitely a moving target. And it's going to be one of those things where at this moment it was one of the greatest races we've seen in a while. But it goes back into the deal of it was just the perfect storm that came together. And I've used that term before, but it is a good term to use in this. The only thing that I see out of this race that I regretted the most was I think it's 23 car pileup.
Yeah.
That was what I hated the worst about it because I feel like that we lost a little bit out of that. We didn't lose everything out of it, but I feel like we lost something in that mix of these cars being either damaged or eliminated. And it was one of those races that was so good that I'd love to have seen all the cars run hard as they were running and compete for the win. No doubt that this was, to me, one of Chase's best races, and I feel like that for me it was well deserved and well earned. Also, too, in that, I just have to ask the question though: is why did it take a year to do this?
Well, no kidding. Why did it take a year? If this race wasn't totally random, right, we agree, a lot of skill involved in what all those drivers up front were doing, including Zane Smith, including Ricky Stenhouse Jr., coming from 24th, drive it back into the top 10. Carson Hocevar coming back from 2 laps down to drive into the top 10 and be near the lead at one point, and on and on and on. Brad Keselowski had his best race of the year. Why did it take Chase Elliott so long to stand above all of them? Why did it have to take all of these contenders getting wiped out? Now, I want to posit this. This was, a lot of people are saying, the best race of the year, or one of the best.
So
a
far.
lot of people are starting to move Atlanta Motor Speedway up. There's $1. Okay. EchoPark Speedway up their rankings. Devin's going to nail me for it, too, after the credentials thing. But there is something about this race that changed compared to what it could have been, and that is that 23-car crash. And when you don't have the field all wadded together because you don't have 36 fast cars, you had only 12 to 15 fast cars. It allowed some expanding and collapsing, and drivers had a little elbow room to move. And that is something we're missing because of the way the cars are set up at Daytona and Talladega that you had at Atlanta, is you could get runs because there weren't as many people. Also, there was some off-throttle time. Now, I did a Q&A at the Raceway Ministries tent Saturday morning. There were a ton of people there, packed the tent for the drivers, not for me, at 10:15 or between 10 and 10:30. And we did it's because they showed up kind of the same time. We had Corey LaJoie and Michael McDowell on the stage. And I asked them, hey, how's it changed since 2022? And McDowell said, and actually they both said versions of, the pavement has worn, but actually made it grippier because the first layer, the part that made it all slick and not worn in is gone. And now it's kind of jagged. And it takes rubber, and then you can hold speed. And Michael McDowell said that there was actually more on-throttle time during qualifying on Friday than there was in past races. Now, that's qualifying versus a race, but I think that shows this track hasn't seen the fall-off yet, but there is an ability to have responsiveness there. So I think there's a couple things playing to the track temperature going down a little bit with the weather that came through. So what I want to say is this, to anybody that saw that and goes, my God, put that in my veins again in February. In February or whenever it happens, we don't have a schedule yet. In February, it's going to be cooler, and you might have 30 cars running, and it could look a little different. Don't penalize the whole thing because Saturday, what we saw was epic, and not every race could be that epic, okay? For Chase's win, Devin, you and I talked a lot about it. It's hard to even say any more that hasn't already been said, but you were out on pit road, and you saw the reaction. Dan saw it on TV. I was the furthest away. I had no TV. I was only listening on PRN through my headphones out in turn 2. I didn't even have a big screen, but I could hear the crowd thundering. You were right close by, Devin. You've seen Chase win before. You've seen EPS victories before. This had to be, I'm guessing, one of the best victory experiences you've been a part of, right?
Yeah, it certainly was, because I don't think I've ever seen a crowd reaction like that post-race for any given driver. And I've been to... But this is my 4th Chase Elliott win. I went to 3 of them in 2022, and the crowd reaction, yeah, they liked him, but it wasn't anything like what we experienced at EchoPark Speedway. In fact, we saw him win at the Quaker State 400 3 years ago at Atlanta at EPS. The crowd response wasn't the same as it was a few nights ago.
It was
at
big, but it
EchoPark.
wasn't the same. I agree.
But I think when you look at it, this has got to be one of Chase Elliott's biggest wins of his NASCAR Cup Series career. And this is bigger than the one he had won at Atlanta a few years ago.
I will say, though, if people forget, there were 2 wins that I think have to go above this. And they were both in 2020. Not his first win in 2018, not his first Atlanta win in 2022. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just think we're prisoner of the moment. We don't think further back. When he won Martinsville after having a pit road penalty or supposed penalty that they got taken back in 2020, he had to win Martinsville to advance to the championship 4, and it knocked Kevin Harvick out, who had 9 wins. That was a huge win. And then the very next week, coming from starting in the back at Phoenix and driving all the way to the front to win the darn championship. I hate to say it, but I think those are bigger. I don't hate to say it, but I hate to argue, but I think those are bigger in the spectrum. Now, as far as feel-good wins, this one and his first Talladega win in 2019 where the crowd had a similar reaction to me right there. I was there for that, and it was electric, and he came in with similar emotions as what we saw Saturday night.
I will say, though, compared to those wins that you've said, and I'm not arguing with you or anything here, but the fact that he got injured in 2023, came back, it just didn't seem like he was the same driver because he hasn't had a multi-win season since 2022, and that was before the injury. Nope. So he hasn't had a multi-win season since then. He's only had 2 points cup wins since then, Texas last year and then EchoPark this past Saturday. You could just feel the tension was building, not necessarily with the race team and Hendrick Motorsports, but it was like, man, this is just not the same Chase Elliott we've seen in the past. And just to see him get that victory just felt like he finally got over the hump in a way. And that's just kind of what I saw. And just look how electric he was after the race, too. We never see Chase Elliott like that. That's just something we've never seen from him. And I think that really just goes to show how much this win meant to him to be able to win at his home track. And it's just been, yet again, another over a year drought of not winning a cup race.
Hey, Dan, I'd love for you to weigh in. I mean, it is your nephew. You were up there. I remember you talked to him after his first win, August 5th, 2018, Watkins Glen, when he landed back home. What do you think about, getting the monkey off your back after a long winless streak and the fact that it's Chase doing it versus another driver who maybe is a little more low profile, and also in the parlance of Chase's kind of outward attitude to most things? And it seems like there was a stark difference between Chase the winner and Chase the regular competitor.
I know for us, Devin, it was one of those things where it seems like the hometown win was the most elusive. And it felt like we needed to do that to vindicate ourselves for the hometown crowd and to show what we were capable of and so forth. And I feel like this was what they had to do at the time, because we've read so much in the past, first part of this season especially, on whether he would be able to win again or not. And you start to question yourself as to, will this happen again? Is this going to be my race? Can I do this? And I know that no one will really admit to that, but it does cross your mind. And even in times that you think that you're the strongest, there is a weakness at times, and this does happen. So to be able to do that and come back and run as hard as he did, because it wasn't really a runaway. It wasn't a giveaway. It was not a race where fuel mileage factored in or other circumstances. It was one that was well earned. And you can look back at it and say, hey, this one I got. This one was mine. And every one of that team did their job. The motor performed well. The car performed well. The pit crew performed extremely well, and the driver, all 4, they were hitting on all 4 for this race. And that was what I was telling you before, is all of this has to line up to get you into victory lane. Everything, even the fact that you had that the big one at the first of this event, I don't know that it changed the outcome. We'll never know that. It doesn't matter. But even that factors in to, but he earned it. Still earned it.
It definitely earned. People could say what they want about, super speedway and that. It will be good for his, I guess, the view of him to start leading more laps, winning more stages. Still no stage wins this year.
Well, that'll be yet to be determined on how this plays out and where it goes in, because it really doesn't even. I think the difference here is Doug in the how we perceive his driving style, or how he has shown us his driving style is, like Devin said, more conservative, more not to take the big risks and to pad the points, because you're looking at the points to get into the playoffs. And to do what he did at Atlanta, to me, goes against the grain of what he's done, as Devin said, in the past couple of years.
That's a great point. That is a great point, because he had to make some big moves and some big blocks
Goes against
to pull that off. And truthfully, this also, so someone say, hey, it is a big win too. Not only all the hometown stuff, and not only the winless streak, but he got in the playoffs. Look, man, Chase is now second in points, 37 points behind leader William Byron. I know it's possible we've had 9 consecutive different winners this year, like since Kyle Larson won a second time in that stretch. But look, Chase Elliott is not worried about making the playoffs a lot, unless he has unless he has just a string of bad luck that Brian Blaney's had, or even Tyler Reddick's had, or whoever. He's not. So this isn't about making the playoffs. This is about winning a race, and he drove like it. And he was in a situation where they weren't stuck on some parallax, and you could only pass 1 or 2 cars on an entire run, and you could only make up spots on restarts, which we do see a lot of tracks, unless you have different strategy. This was one where you could go out and get it, and that's why people enjoyed it, and I think that's why Chase won. Dan?
In the absence of colors, if you just were looking at that race and were viewing it with no numbers, no colors, you would probably swear that Kyle Larson drove that race.
That's big. That's huge. That's a great point. Is Elliott maneuvered the 9 car like you would think Kyle Larson was driving it? And Larson didn't have the ability to do that in this race because he got dinged up in a crash. He finished lead lap, but
that was one of the things about Kyle Larson. Since Indy and since Charlotte, we've not seen a lot from Kyle Larson. It's almost as if we had like the movies are, where you're swapping roles here or people. It's almost as if one assumed the other one's identity.
Would you believe that Chase Elliott, though, is how many? He's 5 points ahead of Larson in the standings. Yep. And it wouldn't seem that way, considering you're comparing 3 wins to 1, 9 top 5s to 6 top 5s, so Larson to Elliott, 12 top 10s to 10, but playoff points 23 to 5. Laps led 851 to 136. It's like Chase Elliott's going for singles and doubles, and Larson is going homers and strikeouts. And Larson does seem sapped after that double. It could be a coincidence. It could be just not his favorite tracks or missed a setup, but that double seemed to take a lot out of him. And I heard sort of vis-a-vis through Parker Kligerman talking about it on the Money Lap, but it looks like there were comments recently that Kyle Larson is leaning toward not doing the double next year, because of just the letdown from that. All right, I want to back off of that a little bit. Let me just run down. So we know that a bunch of contenders got taken out. We know the bracket is trash. I think I heard that there were literally 0 perfect brackets left on NASCAR.com, which actually surprises me. There weren't a bunch of contrarian picks and somebody just accidentally has a perfect one, but no, there are none. Can't even accidentally get it right. So here are the top 10 and the finishers there, and then we'll look quickly at the bracket. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it till we have less drivers. I know I'm the only one of us 3 that's still left that still has a champion in the game, which I'll take that. Chase Elliott, your winner, of course. He pulled one heck of a move off at a guy that probably had the best car and led the most laps in this race, and that is second-place Brad Keselowski. Alex Bowman, Elliott's teammate, also was in a situation where he has a winless streak coming up on a year. He finished third. Tyler Reddick, we are halfway through this season. I've been listening to all these podcasts. Now, one of them has said, hey, we're 18 races in out of 36. We are halfway through the bloody season, ladies and gentlemen, and Tyler Reddick still has a goose egg in the win column. But he finished fourth. Fifth went to Eric Jones. I want to pause there. Eric Jones has been on a torrid, for Legacy Motor Club's reputation, a torrid pace lately. He is now tied in classic points with Austin Cindric. Eric Jones of Legacy versus Austin Cindric, who won Talladega, are tied in points. Eric Jones has made up something like 13 spots in the points over the last few races. That shows how tight these point standings are. Jones ended up finishing fifth. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finished sixth. Good rebound for him. He said he had a tough couple weeks there. Seventh went to Zane Smith, who had errands on the car. Georgia company, Atlanta company, in fact. They announced Lucky Dog's coming back. He was there at the racetrack with the David Rudiman uniform, so Need to freshen that up, and one of the media members pointed that out. But Zane Smith finished 7th, and he led 5 laps. He looked great, making moves like crazy. Who finished 8th in this race? Ty Dillon. Good seed in the in-season tournament. It's been well covered. He beat Denny Hamlin, made the zinger about beating your favorite driver, all that. He finished 8th. 9th. I'm surprised it was Chris Buescher. He was so great for so much, running 2nd and 3rd in this race, but he faded at the end, and that was the factor in Keselowski probably not winning. And 10th went to Carson Hocevar, who executed a great comeback. Nod to Connor Zilic, who finished 11th, by the way. He kind of hung out of the mess there. He never really got in the top 10. Cody Ware finished 13th. Allmendinger had a beat-up car, finished 12th. That was fun, guys. That was a lot of fun. And it didn't feel random to me. Even though you have all these different names, it felt, hey, you avoided the big wreck, and then you drove your butt off, too. Because there were some guys that were up in the mix that didn't. Ty Gibbs, 14th. What happened? Ryan Preece, 15th. What happened? So, big stuff there. All right, now, looking at the points, we did that. I'm not going to get too much of the playoff stuff today. It didn't change a whole lot at the bubble there. I don't believe, anyway. But in-season tournament stuff, we're not going to live there. But what did you think, Dev, about how that turned out, and then what's looking ahead to Chicago? I don't know if you have it pulled up or not, or if you had anything that you were specifically honed in on there for Chicago.
No, it's just the fact that there's no perfect brackets remaining. I really haven't looked too much at, who's got upset and who's not. I will say RFK Racing, I was looking at Instagram earlier in the week, and they had some really, really funny posts on their Instagram about who they eliminated, like when Keselowski eliminated Kyle Busch, and his picture was on the phone. That was pretty funny. And
I missed that.
I think Preece eliminated Byron, and they had
he did.
Sabrina Carp.
That was not an upset. Preece, because of the stupid way they seeded because of the unorthodox way they seeded this tournament, Preece was actually ranked higher than Byron based on the best finish over the last 3 races before this. But go ahead, sorry.
But the funny thing about the Preece one is they had a Lego set, a Sabrina Carpenter album, and a few other things being flushed down the toilet. So that was pretty funny.
Man-eater. Okay. But look, how about some of these matchups going into Chicago here? Gregson versus Preece. Come on. Hocevar versus
teammates.
Reddick. That's a good one. Allmendinger versus Gibbs. That's a really good one because they're great at road courses. And we'll get you some stats that really favor Ty Gibbs, by the way, at Chicago here in a little bit. Only 2 races, though. Ty Dillon versus Brad Keselowski on a road course, though? I mean, that's like a race to the bottom. Like, I'm interested. And one of the better matchups besides Allmendinger Gibbs is actually going to be Bowman versus Bubba Wallace, because Bubba's gotten better road courses lately. Bowman was the winner there a year ago. John Hunter Nemechek versus Chase Elliott. Eric Jones versus Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Neither are great on road courses. And then flip to the other side, Zane Smith versus Chris Buescher. Smith has won a couple truck races on road courses. Buescher is consistently a top 10 runner at road courses, and he won Watkins Glen a year ago. I mean, now we're whittling them down. I'm looking forward to this is the Sweet 16. I'm looking forward to the Elite 8 and the Final Four, although we can't call them that because it's not college basketball. But point standings wise, I mentioned Byron, Elliott, Larson, the top 3 there. The bubble's a mess because you can't even find it on NASCAR.com. But basically, the bubble driver's sigh of relief that somebody above the bubble, well above the bubble, won that race. And the last thing, what'd you think about the fact that the top 10 finishers, in fact, the top 10 finishers on Saturday, you had to go all the way back to Kyle Larson in 17th before you had somebody that had won yet in 2025. So Chase Elliott won, but before he got the checkered flag, it was Elliott, Keselowski, Bowman, Reddick, Jones, Stenhouse, Smith, Ty Dillon, Buescher, Hocevar, Zilic, Allmendinger, Ware, Gibbs, Preece, and McLeod, and then Kyle Larson.
This is how much the big one took out of Atlanta. When you're talking about taking wind out of the sails, that's what I was talking about Atlanta and what that really was. And you hit the nail on the head on how much was in play during the big one at Atlanta.
Well, for sure. So do you think that, quote, taking the wind out of the sails made it less of a race for you? Because a lot of us, like me and Devin, are jumping up and down. Do you think, Dan, that wind out of the sails was a bad thing, or that was a way to spice up the storyline, so to speak?
I think where I was concerned looking at the race, I would love to seen all the cars compete to the end and seen what it would have been like, given the fact that a lot of these good cars, the previous race winners, were eliminated or hurt during that stage of the race.
Yeah. Ryan Blaney set a door bumper clear this week to that point. or maybe to the point of would the race have been better or not. Ryan Blaney said that the Penske cars purposefully chose qualifying trim, downforce, and they all qualified, including Josh Berry, the Satellite Wood Brothers team, near the front, and they were going to block the two lines, slow down the pace to keep their spots, save a little fuel, and create a texture similar, not the same, but similar to Talladega and Daytona. And then they had to pit for fuel, cycled other people to the front, they get taken out in the stage 2 crash. That was the game changer right there, baby.
AI is alive and well.
I had a lot to do with that, I'm sure. Okay, and I'm wondering the equation, too. If they know they weren't going to have the best handling cars, and they chose to start up front to keep the track position and then maintain it by slowing down the pace. I mean, that's really interesting, right? All right, we're on from EchoPark Speedway. Great weekend. The staff from Brandon Hutchison and Dustin Bixby on the media side on down. Fresh coats of paint. You heard a lot about that. The stripe around the bottom of the track was different. Heard a lot of people commenting the facilities, and I didn't get to go on the grandstand side at all. I was just in the infield media center, but on the grandstand side, I heard a lot of good things. I knew several people, that, including Taylor that I mentioned earlier, go to their first race. They really enjoyed it. Cheers to that. We're on to Chicago now. Before we get that, there's the week in between. And the news that we expected to drop did drop here the day before recording of the show. Daniel Suarez, Trackhouse Racing, mutually agreeing to part ways halfway through the season. At first, I was surprised by the timing, but now that I had a day to think about it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, you got to get going. You got to go find a ride. It's believed that Connor Zilic is the one that made that seat hot, of course. But, I wonder if there are any other X factors out there, too. Suarez, by the way, does have funding with him. I don't think he's going to struggle to find a ride somewhere. Whether or not it's in the Cup Series, let's explore. So, first off, Dan, to you. Daniel Suarez has not had a banner time at all at Trackhouse, despite 2 wins over the few seasons here. This is his 5th full season, and he was the first driver of that team. But it's been a struggle. So what do you say, Dan, about the decision that appears, although it's mutual, I think most people believe it's probably more on the ownership side than the driver's side?
Well, if you're asking me what Daniel Suarez thought about this and how he feels about this, is that the magic question?
Well, the question is, what do you think about it?
When I think about it, I think about sitting right here, right now. I think it's the best thing that's happened to him in a long time, because I feel like it puts him in a position to where if Dodge is looking for a lead driver who is a really good driver, then he's the one that I'm going to put in the first car, the first charter that I have.
Okay. And that's big. And, Dodge, of course, Ram entering the Truck Series next season. That's owned by Stellantis, which split the Ram and the Dodge brands back in 2009. This one of the executives involved there has been pretty out loud about it, that he thinks he wants to be a Cup by 2027, all things being equals. Yeah, there's an infusion of money somewhere. He would be a top free agent, especially considering the funding. But then I got to think about the younger drivers, the Jesse Loves of the world, people like that, Corey Himes of the world. I know he's on contract.
How many teams are they going to field? How many charters are they going to have? Because if Daniel is your lead driver, then you have the you have the opportunity to pick up these drivers, and you could put together the team of your choice, so to speak, right now, the way the situation is unfolded.
That's fair. That's fair. And especially if you flip a good team to Dodge, all right? A Colleague or Hold Your Belts, a Richard Childress Racing or something like that. Who knows? Even an RFK. I mean, you can't consider that sacrosanct just because there are a lot of Ford teams right now, even though Jack Roush has the big connection to Ford. Devin, what about you? You've gotten to spend time in media sessions with Suarez. You've observed him for years. You're decked out in the Quaker State stuff because of the EchoPark Speedway race, but nonetheless, that's a big partner of Daniel's. What do you think?
I think when we saw Pitbull exit Trackhouse Racing, I think we pretty much saw the writing on the wall when it comes to Daniel Suarez, because Daniel Suarez was brought in a similar time when Pitbull was brought in. So, and there's been talk a lot of the past couple of seasons about Suarez's performance. He won the Ambetter Health 400 last year, 3-wide photo finish. But outside of that, he has that one other Sonoma win. Push comes to shove, Chastain's winning at least a race a year with Trackhouse Racing, and we've seen Suarez go multiple seasons without winning. But I do want to say this one thing too about who's going to replace the ride. I'm going to say this. I don't think Connor Zilic replaces Suarez in that car, and here's the reason why. From the things I'm hearing about how good Connor Zilisch is as a driver, I don't think he'll land at Trackhouse. I think somebody like a Hendrick Motorsports is going to come in and look at their current roster and say, you know what, maybe if we buy out his contract and if he is the talent that he's made out to be, maybe he goes in and replaces somebody like an Alex Bowman at Hendrick Motorsports, because there's a lot of hype behind Connor Zilisch. There's more hype behind him than what we saw from Ty Gibbs. And Ty Gibbs won a bunch of Xfinity races out there and truck races as well. So I think there's a good shot where, look, Hendrick Motorsports, one of the wealthiest teams in the NASCAR Cup Series as it stands, I think goes out, makes a move, buys out Connor Zilisch's contract, and makes him a Cup driver within the next 2 years.
Okay,
well,
all right.
Another thing, too, look at Hendrick Motorsports stable and how stable it has been over the past couple of years. They haven't had a driver change since 2021 when Larson joined the team, but really since then, I mean, since Earnhardt retired, you have Byron and Bowman, and that's it. That's the only changes you've seen practically at HMS.
But yeah, you had Earnhardt Jr. and Casey Kane leave Hendrick at the same time, replaced by Byron and Bowman, who joined Chase Elliott there. Jimmy Johnson's retirement after 2020 brought in Kyle Larson, and it has been a stable lineup. And you would think that, just like we talked about around Chicago time last year, that Alex Bowman's seat would be a little hotter than it is. But Bowman also has kind of in a Chase Elliott way sort of quietly delivered, and so I do wonder, he's got to be the hottest seat over there, but I wonder how much danger really is. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not totally arguing with you. I wonder about that, because there was a lot of talk last year that Justin Haley's move to Spire was a way of Hendrick bringing him in and saying, here's pressure. Now Justin Haley is sitting lower in points than Daniel Suarez. So I don't know. And that's a great point you bring up. See, I think that Connor Zilisch is on the way to the 99 car, not for just all the reasons that everybody else does. The results are there, but also I think that's a move to keep him from getting bought up by another team.
Now that's
the whole point.
Think about what brand he's bringing with him. Red Bull. That brings in a lot of money.
Well,
that adds value.
It's a personal services agreement. I don't know. We don't know how much money that brings per se. The company has the potential to spend a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that they are. How often is Red Bull in his car? Only on these Cup races, unless they're trying to come back full time in Cup, and we don't know that. So I haven't seen anywhere that they're adding more races per se.
But I mean, you just look at the sponsorship and how iconic it is across motorsports, that Red Bull partnership.
Sure.
I just think this is a match made potentially for HMS to come in and make a big move like that.
I would not be surprised at all.
For a while.
I would not be surprised at all to see HMS make a big splash somewhere, somehow, with the 48 car in the crosshairs. I just think that Trackhouse making this move with Suarez they're doing that to keep that from happening to Suarez. Same thing happened with Front Row Motorsports and Zane Smith. Zane Smith spent a year because he got a Cup ride dangled in front of him at Spire, got yanked away from Front Row, and then that went terribly. Spire replaces Zane Smith with Michael McDowell, and he ends up back in Front Row. So I don't know. That's an interesting point. One thing Jimmy Johnson said, so I talked about what he said on the podcast, or his podcast called Never Settle, that he expects to have a third Legacy Motor Club team next year or the year after. Expects to. I expect to have $100 fall out of my hat. Devin expected Chase Elliott to spend 5 minutes exclusively with us on 5 to Go. Okay, but anyway, he said that the two drivers he was looking at, Jimmy Johnson, Jesse Love, and Connor Zilisch. All right? So that leads me to believe that Zilisch, to your point, has been approached. And this kind of forced Trackhouse's hand. Instead of trying to do one more year purgatory with Daniel Suarez, who is universally loved. I mean, we have a one-on-one interview with him on our YouTube page right now. Congenial, thoughtful, does all the right things. The problem is, doesn't lift the car above his shoulders. That's the issue. So I do think there's a chance he could land in the Xfinity Series maybe. We'll see what this new situation is with Rick Ware Racing, because another story that plays into the silly season here is the former co-owner of Spire got bought out, TJ Purcher, and he has bought, reportedly, he told the Associated Press, he has bought Rick Ware Racing. I think the number he said was $100 million. I have trouble believing that's the actual number. I think that's something he's saying. But TJ Purcher is reportedly buying Rick Ware Racing. Whether Rick Ware Racing has one charter or two, we don't even know, because of the whole litigation with Legacy Motor Club over that charter. Keep in mind that charter also belongs right now to RFK, which is Ryan Preece's charter. So there's a mess over here in this silly season that Daniel Suarez's addition to it doesn't clear up a whole lot. It's more brings a lot of questions. And then to Dan's point that we talked about before the show, Dan, how many charters are going to be available if two of the current race teams that own a total of 6 charters end up losing the antitrust suit, right? And haven't signed the new agreement. You know, that could also flood the market.
The fact that we could add in more charters as this progresses as well.
I said earlier in the year, I think NASCAR should consider doing like the Formula One thing, where if you want to, they should try to add charters up until we get 40 or 43 cars. See how many are out there. And then every team that joins has to pay a certain amount of money to offset the damage to the charter market and to the dispensation of prize money. So if you want to join the sport, if they make new charters available, you've got to buy into the sport, and that money gets dispersed to the teams like they do at Formula One. When they're adding 2 cars to the grid in 2026 or 2027 with Cadillac. But that's, you know, that's a whole nother thing. All right. So, look, we've talked a little bit of silly season here. I think Suarez to Zilich's, what could be Zilich's old ride in the Xfinity Series, the 88s. Suarez to Junior Motorsports, to me, has a good ring to it. Go back like Justin Allgaier did. Make a career of it. I don't know. I like that.
And one thing to remember, too, Daniel Suarez is a NASCAR Xfinity Series champion.
He is. 2016. He ended up at a Joe Gibbs Cup ride before Eric Jones did because of Carl Edwards' abrupt retirement, and they'd already placed Eric Jones at Furniture Row Racing, the 77 car. I remember at driver intros in 2017 when that had all gone down. I went up to Eric. I was like, man, that timing didn't work out too well, did it? He goes, he just shook his head because the 19 car should have been his based on his record, but Suarez won that championship. All right, so we've covered a lot of silly season. We've done Atlanta, talked about the points. A couple other headlines here before we look ahead to Chicago and bug out here on episode 320. RFK Racing, Steve Newmark, who was actually vital in the charter discussion in its advent in 2016 offseason. I think it was the 2016 offseason. He is leaving RFK to go to UNC to become, as I read, the athletics director. That's a pretty big deal. But that shows, you know, his acumen there, that he's being trusted with that. And, of course, he's been with RFK for a long time. Larry McClure, the team owner for 15 races in Morgan McClure Motorsports, 3 Daytona 500s, including 2 consecutive with Sterling Marlin. And before that, it was, 1991 with Ernie Irvin. He passed away a few days ago. He was 81 years old, so we wish condolences to him. We also saw the TV ratings for Saturday night. It kind of follows the Saturday night trend. Only 1.6 million watched the race on TNT and its combined platforms. I don't know if they included the altcast in that.
They did include the altcast, but they didn't include the streaming numbers. Streaming numbers that Max or the Turner Company has put out has been very vague. This morning, in fact, I looked at the CNN presidential debate that they had 1 year ago and looked at the ratings on that, and they streamed that on Max. And they were very vague about how many people were tuned in on Max. So even then, like even on the news operations side, they don't even report the numbers for Max.
You would think to me, I was looking at, because the I don't have cable, but the streaming carrier I have, Fubo, doesn't carry the TNT. It doesn't carry the Max networks, okay, or the Warner Discovery networks. So we got a friend coming over who's got that, got that covered for us. So they're going to bring their Chromecast and everything. We're going to watch it all together, so nothing's stolen there.
Also, if you have Max, you can stream both the regular broadcast and the altcast as well.
Right. And so I'm thinking, like, why wouldn't you include the streaming numbers? To me, that's where it's at. Like, why not? But Prime was kind of, and Netflix are all kind of weird about releasing those numbers. So I don't know. But also, let's just say the traditional TV numbers were only 1.6 million. That was still 600,000 more or so than Formula One, who had a movie released all about them that's getting all sorts of publicity, the F1 movie is. And I do want to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But also the social media impressions are big. I think what they're getting with the in-season tournament and cutting up clips and watching it on YouTube, it doesn't have to be live sports viewed to be part of the culture. And we're seeing that with F1, who doesn't have amazing TV ratings, but wins the culture zeitgeist. We talked about that all the time on this show. And so I'm wondering if Warner Discovery's play is more of the social media and the cultural impressions with this in-season tournament than the linear broadcast.
I will say, I talked to somebody from TNT this past weekend. I'm trying to pull up their name now, but what they implied too is that Bleacher Report is going to be a huge arm in their NASCAR broadcasting, because that's just another way to distribute content than just through TV or strictly through streaming.
Correct. And that's what I meant. The Bleacher Report stuff, which is similar to Barstool, right? It just a little more refined, but similar to Barstool, wouldn't you say, Devin? Kind of fan-sided sort of.
Barstool is more of a is more of a, I don't know. They you can't take them as seriously as something as Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report will put quotes out and stuff like that. While Barstool is more of the fan side of things. Like, put it this way: when you look at Talladega Super Speedway, there's a big party in the infield, right? That's the stuff Barstool is more or less more focused on. They still cover sports, but they put a little bit more of an entertainment flair to it than Bleacher Report would.
Gotcha. Okay. But, Barstool Sports, nonetheless, though, that's a big part of this package here. And we need to note, too, and we said it last week, the rest of the qualifying and practice sessions in the Cup Series this year are on True TV, which is also part of the Warner Discovery Suite. True TV. Denny Hamlin on Actions Detrimental this week was upset about that because he's like, I'm in the stinking Cup Series, and I didn't know it was on True TV. And he had to look all over for it. He's sitting there, qualifying's happening outside of his bus, and he doesn't know how to watch it. And I mean, we knew it, I guess, but still, think about the average fan. That's something to over. I like the idea that these things are available in more places, but it needs to be easier to know which place it is, I guess. That's the struggle, but I know that hopefully the demos are going to reflect and start changing that it's in different places. All right, so we covered those headlines there, and now we look ahead to Chicago. I mean, Dan, did you have anything more on any of that stuff, just the TV package? By the way, I didn't watch any of it on TNT. I was out in Turn 2. I haven't even seen any replays. I certainly haven't seen the altcast. I don't know, Dan, you watched it on TV. And I know you have PRN turned up too. But, I mean, did you think the presentation was radically different than Prime? Was there anything TNT brought that you didn't see elsewhere?
There was really not a lot that stuck out in what I saw, what I viewed, and I guess for me, the fact that you have so many views, opinions, and ideas, and everybody gets to comment on it, and there's so many podcasts, and you can get information in so many hundred different places, and you ask yourself at the end of the day, how much of this stuff is accurate, or how much of this stuff is relevant to what I'm really interested in, or in the scheme of things, what does it really matter? And I guess that's to the point, is give me some substance here in what's going on. And I'm like you, number one at the top of that list, number one would be, I need a TV streaming guide so I can figure out what the heck it's on and when it's on, because by the time I get done looking for what it's going to be on, I'm done so frustrated. I say, forget about it, and I go out and do what I want to do. And then I'll come back fair. And I'll come back and watch this at my leisure.
One thing that's going to be interesting, I think about in 2015, the beginning of the last TV deal, and a lot of races moved to FS1 and to NBC Sports Network. FS1, and so NASCAR took more money, and these networks said, hey, we want to build up our cable networks, throw them on cable, and it didn't work. CSN is gone. FS1 does have some, you can go there for live sports, but I think any of their other shows, I just don't think are, they break through the fuzz, if you will, right? It didn't make FS1 a force to really compete with ESPN, which ESPN lost the NASCAR deal going 2014 into 15, right? And that's the thing, is I hope that this allows these streamers to grow bigger and get more audience that we didn't have. It didn't happen when it went to cable, so cable heavy in 2015. Now we're streaming heavy, and even more so as we go through the years in this 7-year TV deal. And I hope it's to the sports benefit and to the streamers' benefit, so the next package brings more money into the sport and more fans, right?
I think what we saw from Prime, especially from the TV ratings, because it surpassed my predictions that I had for it. From what we saw, I think streaming's the future. I think it'll overtake cable eventually.
It's definitely the present. It's already the present, yeah. But I agree, Devin, absolutely. All right, so great discussion on that, guys. And sorry I just threw in that TNT question at the end because there was so much talk. Prime is here, and then they only have 5 races. Like, okay, TNT's here. But TNT had a fan stage, for those that didn't notice. They did have a stage in the infield, so a few fans could gather behind it. Our buddy Alfred Romero, he finally got a picture of Shannon Spake. He follows a lot of different media people, and he got a 2-minute conversation and a picture with Shannon. So props to Alfred there. He's such a big friend of the show there. He promotes 5 to Go all the time, and I was on his show this week, Southern Race Week. But anyway, I just need to throw that in there.
I still can't find that note.
Oh, God. Okay, tell him, Devin, because I've got a weirder story for the end of the show. But tell him this story.
I was at the food. It wasn't this year's Food City 500, but it was last year's. So it's 24. So this was in March of last year. I was at this bar in Johnson City, Tennessee, and I was sitting next to this couple, and I told them, what I was doing up there at the time, and they're like, oh, because I was, covering NASCAR and all that. And they're like, oh, this person, which was like Shannon Spake, and they're like, I forget the connection they had. They were either neighbors or they were friends or something with Shannon and I guess her husband. So anyways, they gave me a note. They I guess got receipt paper or something, wrote it down, and it was their name or their last name on it. And they're like, next time you see Shannon Spake, give her this note and she'll laugh or something like that. So I was like, okay. And now this weekend comes along. It's the first time I've ever seen her at the track before, and I can't find it.
You can't find the note.
I had it in my wallet for a good while.
Dan, check this out. Devin is like Keystone Gen Z, right? I mean, he is the wheelhouse of Gen Z, and this dude pulls out a wallet that is the biggest boomer wallet I've ever seen. Like I've eaten biscuits smaller than that wallet before.
Oh, there's my.
All right. There you go. Yeah,
that's my Culver's manager swipe card.
Okay, but I'm like Devin. You're going to get 2 minutes to talk to Shannon Spake, and you didn't. I'm just saying if you did. And you'd sit there for 1 minute and 49 seconds filing through your biscuit-sized wallet to find a sweaty, faded note from Shannon Spake's old dog walker. That's not creepy.
Yeah, but you're trying to fulfill a promise or something that you told somebody you'd do for them. You're trying to fulfill that, and I admire you for that. But I'm like, Doug, this is the most embarrassing time to not be able to find it that you can imagine. But it just adds to the story because this adds personality to the story.
It adds plenty of personality to the story, for sure. So, Devin, you're trying to get ahead in your media career. I'm just saying, if you get a chance to talk to a heavy hitter like Shannon Spake, and she's good at what she does. She's the host of the TNT pre- and post-race shows. She does a lot of stuff now for NASCAR Productions, or whatever they call themselves now.
Yeah, but she's probably not going to forget you because you're the dude that went through his wallet, and she's probably not going to forget you.
That's true. He's the guy that put his wallet on the floor and stood on his wallet so he could reach the top shelf. Yeah, that's the no. But do not micturate your opportunity with Shannon Spake to get media advice or a lead in this sport by looking for an old sweaty note. Already have it ready if you know she's at the track. That's what I'm saying. All right,
that would be ideal. Is that I have located it, and then I would say something.
Yes.
It's probably like those receipts you get at the gas station where as soon as the sunlight hits it, it fades out and you can't read it anyway.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. All right, so Devin, find that note. We'll get your Indianapolis credentials set. That's her last race, TNT, and we're going to make this happen. All right? And if we need to call Alfred to make it happen, we'll get Alfred to make it happen for you.
That Alfred
all right?
Newman?
Love you. We love Alfred Romero, man. I just love giving him a hard time. He's my man. All right, coming up at Chicago speed, we're already approaching an hour. I thought we were doing pretty efficient there, and then we got stuck on wallets and TNT. All right, look, Chicago's coming up. There have only been 2 races in Chicago. It's highly rumored that this might be the last in the 3-race cycle of things that we're seeing now at these more novel racetracks. The first one, of course, won by
Shane Van Gisbergen.
Shane Van Gisbergen, who I had never heard of a Shane Van Gisbergen, certainly never seen one in a store until he won that race 2 years ago. Last year won by
Alex Bowman.
Alex Bowman, who very famously on TV said that he'd be passed out on the bathroom floor naked or something after winning the race and partying. He said something like that.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching the NASCAR channel last night doing schoolwork. I was up late, and they were replaying both Chicago street course races, the full ones, and I got to hear that interview again.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Del McCowart had gone on TV in 1985 and said he'd passed out on the bathroom floor naked? Like, how would that go over on ESPN in 1985?
No, but
Del McCowart.
That wouldn't go over so well, but I was with Del McCowart at Talladega. No, this was at Daytona, actually, and
how did I know?
Yeah, and he was there, and I said, what's up? He said, well, I was putting in a swimming pool for a couple, And he said the Daytona race came up, and he said, I went over there and it had rained, and the hole that they dug was full of water. And I said, well, you didn't just pump it out and continue on with the pool? He said, no, he says, Daytona, man. And he said, this is my shot to get in the Daytona 500. And he did. He got into the Daytona 500. But they had a couple he left somewhere down there on the East Coast that were very upset because he didn't finish their swimming pool.
So that's so funny. Dale McCower is a part-time racer. What was it? The Economy Inn? Numbers. I used to have the postcard of it. It was number 0 Economy Inn or Travelers Inn, a number 0 green and white car. I think it was a motel. I'm trying to remember what it was called. But well, you know what his famous quote was, Dan, right?
No.
I never won a race, but I never lost a party. So, Dale McCower, rest in peace. He passed away last year, Dale McCower. Okay, I did not have Dale McCower on my bingo card of being in the show, especially when we're talking about the Chicago Street Course. So, which driver out of the 2 races, I mean, vast history of the Chicago Street Course, which driver has the most points?
SVG still, because he won stage 1 last year.
That's a good guess. That's a good guess, but he didn't really come to prominence until late in his win. So it's not SVG. And you got to guess. Most points in the 2 Chicago street races. Also, he wasn't declared. He's not listed on the points list here. That's weird. Okay.
Not Christopher Bell.
Christopher Bell, 12th. No top 10s. Average finish, 27.5. Got some stage points, though. Christopher Bell, I think, was one of those that wiped out and hit the tire barrier in the first race. I think he got caught up early. That's correct. No, the top drivers, Ty Gibbs, average finish of 6th. Now, granted, the finish is not the stage points, but he's only led 18 laps, but 2 top 10s both races. Second, Michael McDowell, average finish of 6, 2 top 10s, almost identical record to Ty Gibbs. Look at those drivers. Tyler Reddick has a top 5 finish in the 2 Chicago street races, average finish of 15th, so hot and cold there. And then, again, points, it's tough with just 2 races, but it's Kyle Busch, Justin Haley. Remember, he almost won. SVG had to pass Justin Haley late in that street course race 2 years ago. Alex Bowman, 6th. He had the win last year, as we said. William Byron, Austin Cindric, Kyle Larson, Todd Gilliland. Chase Elliott with the most points there. An average finish out of those 2 races is 12th. So there you go. So I don't know who to tell you to pick because each race has a different complexion. I got to say, I'm actually wanting it to rain a little bit. A lot of people are saying, give us some great weather. I want the Chicago revelers, the people attending this, to have great weather. And then right when the race happens, just a little bit of rain, because that rain racing was exciting. Am I off base here, Dan?
Yeah.
Or do you not like the rain racing?
I don't know that I care for the rain racing.
We need a race. We need a race at the Chicago Street Course that it actually makes it to the advertised distance. The first one got cut short. It was 100 laps. And then this one last year got shortened. That was supposed to be 75 laps.
Last year's got shortened too. I forgot about that. Thank you, Devin. Dang, that's disheartening. Yeah, okay, we need to go the full distance. That's right. It didn't start on time. That's what it was. It didn't start on time. It wasn't delayed. Oh, God, that was annoying. Xfinity races. Shane Van Gisbergen did win the Xfinity race a year ago. I completely forgot about that in the 97 car. Cole Custer in the race that didn't even go halfway, and NASCAR pulled the technicality on before the monsoon came. Cole Custer won that one. So neither Cole Custer or Shane Van Gisbergen are in the Xfinity Series race. Let's look quickly. You're like, Doug, you don't do anything quickly on the show. Let's look at the entry list for these races, just because there's always interesting drivers that show up in the Cup Series. Colleague Racing's entering a 3rd car with Will Brown, Australian V8 Supercars driver. And the 3rd, Austin Hill, will be Richard Childress' 3rd driver in the number 33. I think he ran it a year ago, too. Corey Heim, don't switch the letters of his first and last name around. He'll be in the number 67. So you're doing it now, aren't you? He'll be in the number 67 for 2311. And Catherine Legg will be in B.J. McLeod's car, number 78. So that's going to be there. So everybody's guaranteed to make it there. Oh, no, actually.
No.
41 drivers. Wait, so did I just name 4? Who's the
41 drivers scheduled to qualify this weekend in the Cup Series race?
Wait, so who's the... They only listed... So I was going off of J-Ski's extra one. Okay, hold on. Josh Balicki's in the 66. They didn't list that one. That's the other one.
Here's a little trivia for y'all. Outside the Daytona 500, when was the last time a Cup Series race, especially during qualifying, that they had to send somebody home?
Besides, I don't know.
Besides the Daytona 500.
Indianapolis?
Atlanta in the spring? No, go ahead.
The
I don't know.
the fall 2018 race at Texas.
No. Besides the Daytona, wow. In the Cup Series. Xfinity is, I know they've had others. Okay, wow. I'm cooked.
So since I was a junior in high school.
Dan and I are cooked.
Yeah, that was year before last.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Before I worked
Lord
at
have
Culver's.
mercy.
That was last year. He's still wet behind the ears.
Oh my God, I'm dying. The Xfinity side, there's so many. But Alex LeBay in the 07. SVG is in the 9. I said he wasn't going to be entered. There he is. The 2 drivers will go home. 40 are entered. 38 will make it. SVG is in the Dale Jr. number 9. Connor Mozak, full-time Truck Series driver in a Toyota, is going to drive Garrett Smithley's number 14 Chevrolet. That's interesting. In the Xfinity Series, I have no idea who this Joe Gibbs Racing driver is, and I'm embarrassed to not know it. Sorry, listeners of 5 to go. Jack Perkins. Have you seen anything about Jack Perkins there, Devin? Is your computer up? Do you have a tab up? Can you look up Jack Perkins while I run through these real quick?
Yeah, I can.
He just got off work. He's just like, no, man, what are you doing? No, but I want to know who Jack Perkins is. Sorry to throw that on you there. Kaz Gralla, who is, I think, running the rest of the road course races for Sam Hunt Racing. We announced that last week. He's in the 24. Austin Green, Xfinity Series champion, David's boy. He's in the 32 for technically Jordan Anderson Racing, but it's really for the team he drives for in Trans Am that fields it. Joey Gase doesn't know who their number 35 driver is. Brad Perez will be in the 45. Preston Pardis and his family team, he runs Spec Miata Series. He'll be in the number 50. The 53 for Joey Gase is to be announced. Thomas Annunziata from Trans Am is back at the number 70 for Cope Family Racing. Josh Bilicki returns to the number 91 for DGM. DJ McLaughlin was in that car last week. Devin, while you're pulling that up, last week in Atlanta, there was one underdog thing that we didn't get to see unfold. There were 2, actually, in the Xfinity Series. The first is CJ McLaughlin in the number 91, who's just never had any results in Xfinity. He's related to SciAps. You know, I just see him crash a lot and run 30th, right? CJ McLaughlin, he qualified 8th Friday evening. Wow, that's a big deal. Probably not going to be able to hold it, but wow, that's big. Could they stay there in the first run at least? They had to change something with the fuel line right before the race. They were in there thrashing on the car, went to the back. And then Mason Maggio, think about how close, Devin, you were there, qualifying was to the start of that race. Mason Maggio's number 53, Joey Gase, had to change a whole engine right before the race, basically. So they had to hustle to get there. The other underdog story from Xfinity, Leland Honeyman. Did you see this, Devin? The blue and white number 70 of Friday night when we were all just googly-eyed and barely awake? Leland Honeyman consistently drove in the top 5 for that Cope family number 70. That's a driver who's been under a lot of heat this year, especially for Anthony Alfredo having some run-ins with him and stuff. And he was up there respectably, not just on strategy, running in the top 10. And he lost that track position on pit road and drove back and got it. So those are 2 things I enjoyed seeing in Atlanta. Just to throw that in there because I was, thinking about the underdogs there. But Devin, who's Jack Perkins?
Jack Perkins is an Australian supercar driver.
I missed that press release and that social media. He just slid right in under the radar.
That only just came out last week.
What age is he?
He is 38.
38 years old. That's a great
Is there a record
age
that goes with him?
So in the Supercars championship career, he's been in 157 races. He's won 1 time, and he's had 3 podium finishes. And he finished 47th in points last year.
So it sounds like part-time situation if it's 47th the points. Well, sorry we didn't know more, but thank you for looking that up. So another V8 Supercars driver, which reminds me, Cam Waters, I believe, finished 5th in the Lime Rock Truck Series race. We didn't really get into that race. Corey Heim led all but 1 lap, and even the lap he didn't lead was one where Lane Riggs just beat him to the start-finish line on a restart. So Corey Heim wins, trucks, Lime Rock, first ever race there. We got to kind of halfway watch in the media center. It was sort of tough to lock in on that with all that was going on at EchoPark Speedway. And we didn't even mention the Xfinity race. I'm talking about underdogs. How about Nick Sanchez getting his first win in a race that ran till 12:45 at night, 2 hours of lightning and rain delays? I barely made it to the end of that one, boys. I got up at 2 a.m. Friday and had a 30-minute nap in the middle of the day and was just not even seeing or hearing straight by the end of that race, but we made it through a PRN. So
you were up for almost 24 hours straight on Friday.
I sure was. And, boy, we're getting close to that story, too, as we were about to wrap this show up. So, yeah, So, But congrats to Nick Sanchez. That race also marred, not by really one big crash, but a lot of smaller ones and those delays. It just took the life out of that race. The wind in the sails that Dan talked about like an hour ago from the Cup race, that just didn't have it in Xfinity, but it was still exciting for sure. So congrats to Nick Sanchez. He made the moves over and over. Nick Sanchez wrecked, spun out, entering turn one, a real awkward crash, and came back and won. And that's what I love about that. That's the super speedway part about Atlanta I really like, is if you don't get damage on your car, if you got the car, you could just draft right up there and get it done. So very cool. Any other observations, headlines, anything there, guys, you want to get into at an hour and 12 minutes here before we wrap up 5 to go?
Tell me a little bit, how was Connie Young?
Connie Yancey?
Young, yes, Yancey. Sorry.
Connie Yancey, yes, yeah. She's great. Raceway Ministries tent deal went extremely well. She was running that thing. I think she was a little bit understaffed on the volunteer side, just from what I could see. A lot of 5 to go fans there. And Connie's a big 5 to go fan too. She says, don't stop doing this podcast. That's the only way she knows what's going on in the sport, because she's not naturally a fan. So that's Connie. Does that mean I need to tell my story?
Yeah,
Yes.
you need to tell your story.
Time to begin your
Okay.
final thought, Doug.
Here it is, my final thoughts. Okay, so I get off work Friday, and I get home, and I'm like, oh, my God, I got to go. And I was looking forward to the race, so I'm like, I got to drive to the track. I got to do all that. I got to go all night. Oh, my God. And Momo's like, hey, can I just get you a hotel room? Like, come on. You cannot drive home after this race. Like, that'll be worse than drunk driving. And that is true. Tired driving is just take it off the table, people. So instead of that, I said, well, let me text Connie, because I stayed at her house a few times for the Atlanta races in college. And she immediately replied back, absolutely, because I'm helping her the raceway thing. She, anytime, detailed message of how to get there. Careful following the GPS. It's sometimes wrong. Keep that in mind, okay? All right? And Connie said, I'm going to leave the door unlocked. You're getting off way late at night. We're waking up early in the morning. You just come right in. The lights on in the guest bedroom, upstairs, keep turning right. Now, I've been to this house before, all right? But it's been like 2008, maybe, like a long time, all right? So the race is over. I'm parked right next to my scissor lift, so I don't stay for Nick Sanchez's press conference and all that. I wanted to, because it's a first-time winner. And I'm driving back. I'm really tired, but it's only a 3.5 mile drive. Roads are pitch black. It's rural part of Henry Clayton County, as rural as that gets. And I know it's still Metro Atlanta. And I'm like, look, I'm following GPS. Okay, like I can't even. I'm following the GPS. And pull up to the house. She says, hey, it's a long driveway in the woods. Go down. All right, cool. I remember that. I remember they just kind of way back there. I see her minivan. Or I see a minivan. I remember Connie's got a minivan. Great. I see 2 structures on the property. Great. But this is the first sign of trouble. As I'm like, this doesn't look like I remember it. But granted, I'm like, it's the middle of the night and all this stuff. Man, I want to go to sleep. Maybe she moved or something. I don't know. Or maybe they died. I don't know. I'm looking for, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that doesn't look like a structure over there. I kind of remembered her house being on the right in her property, but okay. The one that looked lived in was to the left. I'm like, I guess that's it. And this, again, pitch black. The property's not lit up at all, except for some like Christmas lights on one of the houses or something. So I go up. First door's locked, but then I see another one that opens like into a living room kitchen deal. That's it. Unlocked. Okay, who leaves their door unlocked, but if they're not expecting company, right? So I go in, and the house is pitch black. So I turn on my flashlight on my phone. I start walking up the stairs. I'm like, this looks, they have an open floor plan. I kind of remember that. Walking up the stairs, though, I'm like, okay. And I get to the top of the stairs, and then and their house is big. Connie and Tim's house is big. And this house had a second story, but I see all 3 bedrooms. And I'm like, and keep turning right. This don't look right. First bedroom's open. Second bedroom's open. Third bedroom's open on the right. That's the one that's to the right. But it's like, keep turning right. It's right here. They're all 3 open. All 3 are dark. And I'm like, oh my, this is where I start going, oh my God. Am I in the, so I shine my flashlight. And I don't see people in the bedrooms. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe Connie and them were actually staying out late, and that's why she left it. Or maybe they stayed at the track. I don't know. Like, I didn't ask her any details. I just asked if I could have a place to stay. And she gave me a place to stay. And so I go up to the bedroom, that's the last one on the right, and I look in there, and I see kid stuff everywhere. So Connie's kids are grown, but she has grandkids. I went to college with her daughter. That's why I stayed at her house, right? I knew, the family. And I'm like, Connie wouldn't have told me to stay in the, quote, guest suite, as she called it. She called it the guest suite. If it was a kid's bed, unmade, with toys all over the floor, that's not Connie. I know Connie. I ain't Connie. All right? So I'm like, you know what? This is sus AF. So I just wanted to make Devin laugh. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to the car real quick. And worst case, I sleep in the car because I do not feel comfortable. Like, this seems wrong. But maybe maybe I read the directions wrong or something. So I go back to the car, and I'm like I just want to sleep so bad. And this is the thing. I wanted to sleep so bad, I almost got in that bed. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to get in my bed in my clothes with my shoes on face down. I'm so tired and not even brush my teeth. That's how tired I was. But I get in the car, and I drive up the driveway. I'm like, let me just go check. I'm not going to stay here until I know for sure I'm in the right place. And it was the wrong house. Completely wrong. Wrong address. I couldn't see the address when I was pulling in. The letters or the numbers were tiny. So I'm like, oh my God. But there was nobody there. The door was unlocked. There was not a person in there, I promise you. That not in the bedrooms, because I looked. I'm like, are there any feet over here? There's bunk beds over here. Okay, nothing. So everybody's judging me and is already done listening now. They're like, we're never going to listen again. You are
And how many
crazy.
ways could this go wrong?
A lot of ways.
Yes,
It's similar
no
to
doubt.
It's similar to the story that I'm at the wrong racetrack.
It's I'm like Michael Waltrip,
It's
2003.
100
I'm
times
at the
worse
wrong
than that.
track.
Can you say call the coroner DOA?
So I'm still here, and I backtracked, and then the direction said, look, go to the second house on the right, careful following the GPS, and I was like at the third house on the right, the fourth or something. And the next day, and I won't get into the exact detail they said, but when I told Connie and her son, Elliott, who's fantastic, he's a pastor, First Baptist Church, Forest Park, when I told them what happened, I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, you drove in the wrong house. I was like, well, actually, see, the door is unlocked. And they're like, wait, what? You went inside? They're like, guys, those neighbors, you are so lucky. I'll just leave it there. They said, you are so lucky they weren't home because those neighbors were not normal. So there you go. That is I came clean. I mean, when I was walking down the stairs and I realized I was probably in the wrong place, I had a line ready in case I heard a click or a hands up. I was like, hey, I come in peace, man. I come in peace. I'm in the wrong house.
You're not going to hear that at my house because you're going to be laying there bleeding.
So Dan, how was that church revival? So anyway, that's
Yeah, if I were the neighbors that weren't home or were home or whatever, and I heard this story, this would absolutely scare me to death, and I would have to think. So we had a strange person in our house, didn't know it, and he left without being inflicted with buckshot. I don't know how you would describe this other than you're the luckiest man on this earth.
I already thought I was the luckiest man on this earth before this happened.
No.
Certainly now.
No.
Anyway, I want to thank you, God. That was all I'll say. And I don't know what lesson I learned except follow the instructions, right? Follow the instructions.
Listening to this podcast, you need to keep your doors locked just because of stories like this.
And I just want to say, yeah, absolutely. I don't know why you would leave, even in Connie's case, leaving the door unlocked. I'm like, yo, but I get it. I mean, they just feel safe and all that stuff, and they just, shoot anyone, I guess, that doesn't belong. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure, but I want anybody to know if you're in the Panhandle area of Clayton County and something is out of place in your house, I didn't touch anything except my feet on the floor. I didn't touch anything. There's no floaters in the toilet. There's nothing. All right, we're good. So I respect your property, and I'm very sorry. All right? There you go. There's my 6-minute long 5 to go final thought. Devin?
EchoPark Speedway, great weekend. I don't know how I can top that one, Doug. I really don't.
No.
I really don't.
Don't even try. I lived, okay, to get to see and be a part of this wonderful weekend.
Yeah, it is EchoPark Speedway. I think they're really putting themselves in prime position to potentially host a late season race sometime, maybe deep in the playoffs or maybe even a championship race, because just look at the facilities that they've had, that they've upgraded. I mean, it's basically a whole new place just with the fresh coat of paint, and they've touched up some things, so it looks really good.
Amen. Yeah, it definitely feels like they're primed up for something big soon. And Dan, what about you, buddy?
Well, I guess to me, the only thing is, like I said, I wish somebody would take heed to the fact that need to be a little bit more diligent on how you find the races, or the people that are streaming this, the availability to find out more information on doing this in the packages, just so that you could be aware of what's going on, or at least be able to tune in to some of the things that are happening. It just blows my mind that you don't get a better opportunity to find out what's going on, because I feel like it would be a big benefit to whoever is streaming. And I nothing else much more to say about it. Looking forward to Chicago weekend. And I'm like Devin, that was the one thing that I was going to say is let's run the entire race and let's see the whole thing start to finish.
No doubt. I do want that. If you throw a little slick on the track, I won't mind it. But I agree with you there. Hey, Dan and Devin, thanks for making the time, both of you, after a long day of work here. And I know that these Atlanta shows are always going to be a little bit longer because we just bring there's so much you see in person. And Dan, you were the one that really clued me into just the difference it makes when you're actually at the racetrack. It really does. So, by the way, I want to give special praise to Devin, y'all. You don't know how hard this guy, and I'm not just saying this because we're here. My wife just texted me. It's been 90 minutes. We're supposed to go to dinner, okay? It's really time to end it. All right. So I love you, Momo, but don't worry. She won't listen.
Tell her you're blessed to be alive and everything will be okay.
That's yeah, that's correct. She did not find the story funny when I told her the next day. I was laughing.
Funny.
She wasn't.
That is not
It
funny.
was kind of funny. It's kind of fun. But no, I want to give special praise to Devin. He's done a heck of a job getting this message out there and doing so much work on the Facebook page and the graphics and the videos and all that stuff. He takes it really seriously. So, hey, do him a solid, not me. Do him a solid. Do Dan a solid. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube page. There's all sorts of good content on there that's not just shows about me almost dying. All right. There's really a lot of good stuff. I've actually got the 101 I did with Ross Chastain actually a week ago. We're going to put out here that's, wasn't about Atlanta. That's going to be out on this channel along with this. So Devin and Dan, thank you boys for making this happen. I'm going to run to dinner now with my wife. All right. So for Dan Elliott, Devin Kupka, I'm Doug Turnbull. Thanks for tuning in. Find us on social media, 5 to Go Podcast, Devin.Kupka, Instagram, Devin_Kupka on X, and you can find me, Doug, or Fireball Turnbull, some combination of those and all of those. God bless y'all. Have a great week. We'll talk to you after the Chicago Street Race there. This has been the 5 to Go Podcast.